Okay. I have a subject I desire to get into the vortex about. And I spoke with you last year about my son, who I haven't seen for quite a long time. And I have an opportunity to be in the area where he lives. And I'd like to drop in on him, so to speak. And I'd really like to get in the vortex about it, because I know that I believe that it'll just work out great if I'm there.
We like the approach that you're taking here, because when you hit something really head on, especially something that hasn't been working for a while, you usually only exaggerate it right where it is. Where when you have been for a period of time wanting something and it hasn't been coming about, so you continue to want it, you get quite a bit of momentum going relative to whatever the subject is. And then if your intention is just to relax and get into the vortex, then once you're in the vortex, everything that you've put there and everything that's queued up for you, then the circumstances and events are organized in a way to help it unfold. There is a sort of thing that almost always happens when you decide that you're going to make something happen, and that is that the vortex just spits you out. And so it's much better, especially at first, to stay off the subject that has been troubling and just get yourself in the vortex. Does it make sense to you from a physical standpoint, where people have been setting goals and they've been going after things and they've been making things happen? It sort of feels like I should take an issue and I should focus on that issue and I should move that issue to a better place. And of course, any issue that you take and move to a better feeling place is going to give you different, better feeling results. But the question is, do you have the ability to take that issue and move it to a better feeling place? Or when you focus upon that issue, does it always throw you out of the vortex? That's the most significant thing to acknowledge. Is this a subject that you think about and that it brings you pleasure? Or is this something you're working on to try to make it happen?
I'd have to say I'm really on the edge. I think that very recently, it's been more hopeful than anything else.
You almost would be better off to say, there's some things I'm working on, Abraham, and I don't want to talk about them. I'd just like to get in the vortex.
Okay.
Can you hear the difference? I'd just like to get in the vortex. And someone would say, well, why do you want to get in? And you say, oh, because it feels good in there. Why do you want to be in the vortex? Because that's who I really am. Why do you want to be in the vortex? Because then I'll rendezvous with everything I want on a lot of subjects. And so you're in, and then if someone would say, oh, come on, there's some ulterior motive. What is it that you really want to do? Well, I want to see my son that I haven't seen, and the vortex spits you out. You sort of getting what we're getting at? Do you realize that when you've asked that it has been given, and now your work really is not to try to manage it, but to trust? In other words, you say, I'm going to be in the area. I'm going to be in the area, and I'd like to sort of just drop in. What do you think will happen? In other words, in the past, if you just dropped in, what would happen?
Oh, it wouldn't be good.
And so what will be different this time?
All I can say is my feeling that it'll be a different experience this time.
But what we're getting at is that from inside the vortex, what happens is things occur. In other words, you don't micromanage from inside the vortex. You allow the laws of the universe to organize. You allow the source within you to set it up. You don't try to make it happen. So a much more effective stance would be, I want to get in the vortex. Why? Because it just feels good in there, and it's because it's where I belong. Not I want to get in the vortex because I'm trying to add particular emphasis to something specific. It almost always works in the other way. So talk to us about things that would take you easily into the vortex.
My relationship, that's a great one.
Do you think that, here's a question for all of you. So you hear us talk about the vortex, and you, as someone said, you conceptually, intellectually get what it means. So when you're in the vortex, what do you think your predominant emotion is? In other words, what does an in the vortex moment or hour feel like? What does that feel like?
Calm and
Feels like clarity, feels like well-being, feels like everything's in its right place, feels like everything's all right.
I feel like ideas just pop into my head when I'm in the vortex.
But the thing that here's the thing that we most want to give you specifically about this. We are not teaching you to get into the vortex in order to get things that you haven't been getting, or in order to make things that haven't been working out work out. We want you to get into the vortex because that's who you are and where you belong. We want you to be in the vortex because there is a vibrational counterpart to you there that you have added to. We want you to realize that you are the creator of your own reality, but what you are creating is you. You have created the expanded version of you. So the expanded version of you stands in that vortex, all tuned in with all that you are, and feels lack about nothing. Lack about nothing. So even though, how long's it been since you've seen your child?
Almost 10 years.
So even though you have not seen this person, the source within you is not suffering or feeling lack because you have not seen this person. Stay with us just a little bit because this is such an important conversation to have. Do not worry, we're not trying to convince him to not be specific because he's not going to get what he wants. We're wanting you to not be specific because it will be easier for you to be in the vortex if you're not specific. And when the universe orchestrates the circumstance and events, there are no negative repercussions. When you try to make it happen, there often are some sort of blowbacks that happen, as you have described in part. So, having heard all of this, does it feel to you that you are in the vortex on a regular basis?
I'd have to say, yeah.
Other than when you think about this issue?
Well, there's other things that spit me out of the vortex, but I seem to get back in and stay there most of the time.
So is this a subject that causes the vortex to spit you out more often?
Yeah.
So you want to have this dialogue so that you can get into the vortex relative to this subject?
Well, since it seems to be the toughest one, I thought that if I could be in the vortex about that one and sort of taste that might be something I could get easier into more often.
Well, the reason that we prodded until you said that is because that's exactly the opposite way that we would go about it. In other words, we would use all of the easy things to get into the vortex because, hear this is the one piece that you're missing, that when you hear it, everything will sort of click into place for you. It doesn't matter what excuse you use to get in the vortex. When you get in there, everything you want is in there and the path to it will show up for you. But when you take the most difficult thing, the thing that you've struggled with for 10 years, and you use it as the subject to get into the vortex, then it's harder to get in, it's harder to stay in. There are much easier ways of going about it. So that's why we were wanting to present to you the other side of you. Who you really are is not suffering in the current condition ever. In other words, when you are in sync with who you are, you will be someone who may or may not be seeing your child, but you will not be feeling negative emotion about the lack of it. And there's something really worth getting over about this because people all around the room are feeling uncomfortable with this. Hey, Abraham, we thought that if you showed us how to get in the vortex, we'd get everything we want. You will. You will. You can't get in the vortex and have things not work out. But don't use your hardest case as your excuse to try to get in. It's harder, it doesn't work very often, and you don't stay in very long. So how long before you're going to be in the neighborhood?
It'll be about the second weekend in August.
So you have some time to... So the fastest way that we know to release resistance about a subject is to make peace with it where it is. And that's what we were making the effort in doing here. We're wanting to say to you that, of course you want to see this person. Of course you want to spend time. Of course you want to get to know your child. Of course you want to have interaction. But you can't let the wholeness of you be dependent upon that relationship, because the wholeness of you is only dependent upon the relationship with your inner being. There are so many people who are sort of looking for love in all the wrong places. They will say, well, if my lover would love me, or if my lover who left me would come back, or if I could reestablish this relationship, then I would feel better. And we say, you got to reestablish the relationship between you and no longer use that as your reason not to establish that relationship. And then you'll be like your inner being who is in the vortex feeling good the majority of time. And then circumstances and events will be comfortably orchestrated and will deliver to you exactly what you've been wanting in a way that's natural and unfolding. So what we're saying to you is, we think that it is a misapplication of the laws of the universe and even of a specific process to say, I'm going to be in the neighborhood and so I want to get into the vortex so that in other words, there's too much control or effort at control. So I want to get into the vortex because when I'm in the vortex, I'm in sync with my broader perspective. And when I'm in sync with my broader perspective, I feel whole no matter what. I want to be in the vortex because I want to be in sync with my broader perspective. And when I'm in sync with my broader perspective, I feel joyful regardless of the conditions. When I'm in the vortex, I'm living unconditional love. And do you feel what was going squirrely with this just a little bit? I want to use the vortex in order to affect a condition so that I can feel better. Big difference. I want to use the vortex to affect a condition that will be an improvement, and then I will feel better. Now, don't let this upset you, because it sounds a little bit like what we're saying is, oh, we don't want you to create your own reality, and we do. We just want you to do it from inside the vortex. We want you to use the leverage that creates worlds. Because if you make an effort, not only will the vortex spit you out, but whoever lives in that house will throw you out. You can't just show up like that. It won't work, and you know it. Is it?
Okay, so
in other words, from inside the vortex, once you get in there where everything that you want is, where this improved relationship is, and where understanding is, then from inside the vortex, the all cooperative components will be assembled. So let's say that you're in the vortex and have been for a while, so you are a cooperative component. Do you think your son is a cooperative component to this rendezvous?
yes.
And who else might be involved? Is there anybody else that might be involved
Yes.
who is cooperative or uncooperative?
There's friends that are cooperative and not friends that are uncooperative.
So when you think about the rendezvous of just getting together with your son, it's easy to see that there are people that would help and people who would hinder. But when you think about this vortex where all cooperative components are being assembled, what is the center post? What is the seed? What is the desire that you have been assembling over a period of time? What is the heart of this cooperation? In other words, what is the desire that you hold?
To connect back with that person. That would be the best result, would be just to see him and to talk to him.
But there is so much more. What else? To see him, to talk to him, to communicate with him, to know him, to love him, to let him feel me from inside the vortex, to understand him, to take him in, to breathe him in, to know him, to love him, to play with him, to converse with him, to communicate with him, to express to him who I am, to be in the vibration of love that is wholly who I am, and let that radiate to him, to let us wrap around one another vibrationally. And all of that is already happening inside the vortex anyway. So the point that we're wanting to make here is that if you can see this vortex, this vibrational vortex, as the gatherer of all of those things, and bask in the wholeness of just the idea of that. You came into the vortex just now with us as we were describing that. and you felt the fullness of all of that, and you came into alignment with the way your source feels about all of this. And during those words, there was no resistance in your vibration about it. And that's what you're wanting to accomplish rather than trying to orchestrate a physical rendezvous. If we were standing in your physical shoes, we would say things like, from time to time, I'm in the neighborhood and there will be plenty of opportunities for us to rendezvous. But meanwhile, the rendezvous that I'm most interested in accomplishing is the one between me and me.